Welcome to the Wrestling Still Cool podcast. My name's Cam. This is the final episode that will go up for the Memorial Day weekend. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend. This episode will be talking about wrestling that took place from Monday, May 17th through the end of the week. Something that happened during this episodic week of television is that there were some releases that happened, two of which that I do recognize the name of were Drake Wuertz and Velveteen Dream. Drake Wuertz became a radical right-wing individual, similar to Jackson Riker. And at the time, reporting that came out is that he had been ruffling some feathers while he was there towards the end of his tenure, at one point causing a disruption during a meeting that Triple H was conducting. I don't think anyone should really lose their job, especially if they're trying to voice their opinion. But there's a time and place. Everyone knows with WWE being a large brand that they can't have this negative press being attracted to their talent. I don't know what's going to end up happening for him. I don't remember him much on TV. I just remember seeing his photo, recognizing him from some broadcast, and at the same time knowing about what he had going on between the propaganda and easily disputable things he was sharing on the internet. The other person is Velveteen Dream. Velveteen Dream fell into drama related to the Speak Out campaign that was happening, some things that were going on with an individual that may have been underage at the time. WWE said they conducted their interview, could not find anything of note, and everyone moved on from there. Other than the individual, which I don't blame him. If it really happened to him, I'm sorry it happened to you, man. With that said, Velveteen Dream was a great talent on television. He had an allure to him. He is someone that I think would fit WWE. And with him being cut with WWE, there's talk of him going to AEW. I can understand that. I just don't think AEW is a good fit. I actually think his character would resonate well with the Impact crowd. Nothing against Impact, but with them having Decay and Johnny Swinger, they have more outlandish characters. Yes, AEW has the Dark Order as well as a few other people, but it's nowhere near to the outlandish things that Impact has going on, and that's why I think Velveteen Dream is a better fit for them. Either way, I think he'll end up on his feet. I don't think, unless there's more information that came to it, that this Speak Out thing is going to really harm his career if he chooses to continue wrestling. But I wish the best for both of them. Especially if Velveteen Dream was not found to actually committed those acts, and if that's the case, I hope they both end up on their feet. Now, let's get into wrestling. So, this is the last week I'm going to talk in depth about what happened on WWE television. Only going into the news and big storylines going on, and it's just one, it's a lot of television. Two, it's sorry WWE, but lately your television has not been that great. Besides what's been going on really on SmackDown, a little bit on NXT, but mainly on SmackDown. And I'd rather focus more attention with other organizations in the form of like AEW, Impact, Ring of Honor, MLW, and other independents, being able to try and track those down. I want to give them the proper attention, and honestly, with Raw being 3 hours, NXT being 2 hours, SmackDown being 2 hours, and of those, there's probably 4 hours of valuable content, maybe a little bit more. It speaks to being a time-consuming annoyance. So this is going to be the last one about that. I know some storylines offhand that I probably will stick with, one being the Drew McIntyre storyline with Bobby Lashley, the other being the Roman Reigns Uso. And honestly, it looks like, in terms of SmackDown with the Intercontinental title, that Big E and Apollo might be heading towards a Hell in a Cell match. But we'll get into that when the time comes. So on Raw, there was I don't know if this happened for anybody else, but it looks like on my recording there had to been audio issues. If that wasn't really the case, I'm sorry, but I that's one of the things that stuck out, is I kept losing audio. So if you guys didn't experience that, I did. So that's one of the things I made a note about. There's an MVP promo that started out the night where MVP was issuing an open challenge. One of the things that was highlighted later on in the night is that it wasn't for a title match. It was just for a regular match with Bobby Lashley. It wasn't presented that way, so a lot of people are in the understanding that it was a title match. Either case, Drew McIntyre responds. MVP then says that it was going to exclude Drew and Braun, being that they just faced Bobby Lashley the previous night on Backlash. Later on, we had Elias versus AJ Styles. Jackson Riker, one of the people I referenced in the Drake Wirtz thing, had attacked Styles and was about to do the forearm, and Elias got the win. AJ got the win, but there was a DQ in that. Backstage, we have RK Bro and the New Day. There's a joke from the New Day towards Randy Orton about having erectile dysfunction, which was a nice little kind of toilet humor that they threw out there at that time. But, New Day's New Day. They try to entertain the people. We then get Garza versus Gulak. This was a very one-sided win for Garza. I think this is the second or third time they face each other now on Raw. And almost every instance, Garza came out on top and came out on top very decisively. I don't know if they're going to continue to do this match. I hate to say it like this, but WWE is very repetitive. I wouldn't be shocked if they go to the well one more time. Gulak is a good person in terms of being able to highlight what he can with Garza. So I'm a Garza fan. I don't like what they're doing to Drew. I think Drew deserved more down the line. But if they're using this to possibly push Garza to the point where he will come away with the United States title or something along those lines, it's well worth it at this point. There was a backstage reference to R-Truth in the Open Challenge. He was more or less thinking that was for his title, which the Open Challenge would always be for his title. It's the 24/7 title. He could be pinned anywhere. Either way, Akira Tozawa sneaks up, gets a pin, takes the title from him. Then we have Orton versus Kingston, Kofi Kingston. This was a pretty good match. This ultimately resulted in Orton getting distracted by the horn that Xavier Woods had on the ringside, and Kofi Kingston gets the roll-up win. Kofi and Randy have a little bit of history. This was referenced in their promos leading up to this. This was what happened during the Arcade Bro and New Day segment earlier in the night, referring to erectile dysfunction, where they kind of had the match made. But with the history that Randy and Kofi had, both positive and negative, this is going to be a decent match. And Kofi is one of the top performers in WWE in terms of being able to do high-flying ability. Then you got Randy Orton, that's more of a storyteller. Yes, he's known as Rest Hold Randy, but at the same point, you got to give credit where credit is due. He knows how to sell and storytell a match. We have the new tag team champions for the females with Natalya and Tamina versus Baszler and Jax. Natalya and Tamina win this one. Nothing more else I could say about that. One thing I will highlight is at one point during this match, I believe it was Corey Graves made a reference to a local medical facility. Again, this is highlighted under WWE talk that I really wish would go away. It's a hospital. Just call it a hospital. If you want to call it a clinic, call it a clinic. But local medical facility is the vaguest term I've ever heard of. Just the same way that they don't refer to championship belts as championship belts. They refer to them as championship titles. And yes, it is a title. If someone holds the title, they hold the title of the World Heavyweight Champion. But at the same point, just because Vince McMahon doesn't like the term belts, we can still call it a belt. And if there's a match, we can call it a match. We don't have to call it a title opportunity. It's a title match. The same thing where instead of saying we're gonna have a match or we're gonna have a wrestling match or anything like that, they like to use the word fight. Yes, street fight is a fight, but if you're gonna have an ultimate submission match, it's a match. It's not an ultimate submission fight. Just one of those WWE talks where they have people say certain terms that just because Vince McMahon prefers it that way and no other reason beyond that. And it's leaking everywhere else because people leave WWE and go on to maybe Ring of Honor or Impact or AEW, and then they use the talk there. It's grinding. It's very, very grinding. We then have Sheamus versus Ricochet. This one, this is... Are they pulling a Jake Paul at this point, where basically Ricochet steals Sheamus's hat as kind of like a way to mock him? Ricochet wrestled in what looked kind of be like street clothes. Not bad. It was different. It was kind of jarring at first. Didn't really recognize him without his normal gear, but it is what it is. He looked pretty good here. Sheamus ultimately won with a broke kick. It was a pretty good match overall. I gotta give credit where credit's due. Ricochet looked really, really good here, even though he did get the loss. They're probably going to continue this feud where Ricochet and Sheamus are going to trade wins and losses, just because that's how WWE books it. If not, Ricochet, they're making Sheamus look stronger for ultimately who's going to unseat him as the ultimate the United States champion. But ultimately, it did kind of. If Ricochet is unable to get a win here and there, maybe not from Sheamus, but from somebody else on the card, it's not going to look well for Ricochet. We then get Asuka versus Charlotte Flair, and what is with this cowprint that Charlotte Flair is wearing? I made a note about this for Backlash, forgot to bring it up, but I don't get it. I mean, one can make a joke that they're milking the Flair cow at that point, which they kind of are, for her name and everything else. But I don't. Whoever told her that was a good idea to wear it looks ridiculous. During the match, Rhea Ripley joins commentary to sit and watch the match. Ultimately, Asuka wins with the Asuka lock. Asuka looked good here. Flair is Flair. Probably going to get a title match down the line, maybe even the title down the line. But at this point, she made Asuka look good, which is only was going to make Raw better. Asuka deserves it. Asuka is a great talent. Then we get Morrison versus Priest again. I think this is their sixth time that they've wrestled each other since WrestleMania, probably even more. This was a normal lumberjack match, no zombies, because like they said, Miz was eaten alive at WrestleMania Backlash. So WWE wanted to make sure that didn't happen again. And this Priest won, because Priest has always won against Morrison, so I don't know why they keep having these matches. Finally, later in the night, Kofi answers Bobby Lashley's open challenge. This was unexpected because Kofi did have a match earlier in the night with Randy Orton. It was a win, but it wasn't a decisive win, so you would think, based on him being in that match and almost losing that match, that it would be a quick match, but it wasn't. They had a little bit of a back and forth. Bobby Lashley was distracted by Drew. Drew got MVP's cane, jabbed him in the throat. Kofi got the roll-up win. Ultimately, Kofi Kingston did pin the WWE champion. So I believe he's a regular champion. I don't believe he's a Universal champion. WWE champion on Monday Night Raw. Now, this is more likely just to further the story between Drew and Bobby, because, again, Drew was involved in the finish. But it was a win, and Kofi can walk away with a win. This is an example of Raw not being that great. There was a couple instances with... No, there wasn't. This past week we did not see Alexa Bliss. But it's a 3-hour show. There's a few matches here and there, but we basically got the rehash of Asuka versus Flair. We got a rehash with Morrison and Priest because they've wrestled each other, I don't know, for the 10th time maybe. And then you have the furthering story of Bobby Lashley, which definitely needs to happen. But Kingston wrestled twice. You have this depth chart of talent available to you on Raw. Yeah, there's some injuries and some people aren't working because of the COVID pandemic, but this was a very, very thin show for 3 hours. And this is the part of the programming that's wrong with Raw. The Fiend has been missing since WrestleMania. They probably diminished the Fiend at this